Hi, I'm Jim Canterucci, and I'm a Nolimitspreneur.
You're now locked onto another episode of the Nolimitspreneur podcast, the show that helps you dominate in life and in business to enhance your mindset, confidence, productivity, time management, habits, and goals. And now, your host, Maher Abiad.
Hey, what is up, Success Nation? It's your boy, Maher Abiad here, back with you again for another excellent Nolimitspreneur podcast episode. Today, I have the privilege of interviewing my guest, Jim Canterucci, who is an expert in leading change management and CEO of Constituent Hub, a software for managing change management effectively. And he helps leaders and businesses with his company, Transition Management Advisors. Today, Jim and I are going to discuss how he got started, personal development, and being able to do things even though you might be afraid, unsure, or not have all the answers. So this is an episode that you do not want to miss out on. And with that being said, let's jump into the podcast interview right now. Jim Canterucci, thank you so much for coming on the Nolimitspreneur podcast. I'm super excited to have you with me. You've done a ton of amazing things in your career. You have a wonderful story, and I'm super excited for you to share with the audience today your many different experiences in life and how we can be better people, how we can run better businesses. And I really appreciate you taking the time out today.
Well, thank you so much for having me as your guest. I really appreciate it and look forward to it.
Excellent, excellent. So before we get started into the nitty gritty, I always love finding out more about who the guest really is, their story. Everybody has a unique story. They come from different backgrounds. They have different experiences. And that's what really shapes them to become who they really are today. And I want to start off with getting to know a little bit more about you. If you can share with the audience your story of where you got started, your sort of aha moments throughout your career that kind of pivoted you to where you are now and how you ended up where you are today.
Sure. It goes right back to the beginning, really. I grew up in a relatively small town, 20,000 people in Ohio, mainly Italian immigrants who came to the U.S. to get the jobs in the steel mills in northeastern Ohio. And so that's where I grew up. And I thought everybody lived in a little Italian village. I didn't know any better until I went away to college. And while I was going to school full-time, I had a job full-time. I went to Ohio State. And that full-time job was with a company that did 38 acquisitions while I was there. And my job was to go out to the acquired company and bring them into the fold. I was so naive that I thought everybody's job was like mine. I didn't know that was a special thing. I didn't know that was a category or special skills. And it seems that my whole career was that way. I was so busy doing it, I didn't realize there were academics about it and so on. My second big job was as a second employee in a small consulting firm. I got that entrepreneurial bug. And I knew, here's the way I would phrase it, I knew I would never have a real job ever again. And I got that itch to do that. And so after 8 years of a laboratory, really working with big companies, but in that small setting, a really championship team type culture, I decided to go out on my own and start my own firm. And again, naive, I didn't realize before I did that this was a thing. Again, I was working 90 hours a week doing it. I didn't know that. I thought everybody knew how to do this. It was just like everybody else's job. And so that became the basis for my business, teaching some of those skills that made all of that work. So that really is the motivation that got me out to start my company, Transition Management Advisors, which is designed around large organizational change. I've always been around it. And there you go.
I 100% agree with you. I've always had that entrepreneurial bug myself. And it's fascinating to hear your story about sort of how you found your calling, you found your purpose. And you mentioned, running your own company. You actually also run your own software company as well called Constituent Hub. Can you tell us more about sort of what that company does and sort of the inspiration behind the software and what problems you were really trying to solve in the marketplace?
I wrote a methodology in the mid to late 90s on how to lead change properly within an organization. And I'm not talking about the kumbaya part of change. I'm talking about we have a big change initiative going on where, let's say, we're implementing a big, huge computer system that's going to affect thousands of people. How do you do that? Right? That's what the methodology was about. And I taught that, spoke about it, taught change leaders how to do that. But there always was a little problem, and it was that you really couldn't do a lot of this work on a spreadsheet. You needed relational databases and a lot of complexity to make that work. But we simply didn't have the technology to be able to do that. And so we grew as an industry of people doing that, if you want to think of it as an industry or a specialty at least. We institutionalized not doing the right things because they were too hard. And finally, with the ability, with the cloud and the ability for little old me or little old you to create enterprise software, we didn't need big buildings and servers and boxes of disks and all of that kind of thing. I decided to just stamp my foot down and say, enough is enough. I'm tired of this. Let's fix this problem. And so what Constituent Hub is bringing breadth to the change methodology for how to do it, but being able to round off those edges, because we're doing all of the work within the system, not on spreadsheets or cocktail napkins or notes or whatever. And we're able to do some of the important things, like, for example, take the message that I pick up from you in March and use your words when I talk to you again in November when we're going to implement that change. Those little things are very difficult to do manually. And so our system is designed around automating as much as we can of the science part of it so that we could do the art part of it as change leaders. So that's really what we do. And for the first time, you can see all of the changes across your enterprise, and you can look at an individual person and see that they're involved in certain change initiatives. Is it too many? Is it not enough? Are they the right people? Those types of executive perspective decisions that you can take now because you have the right data in front of you is what Constituent Hub is designed to do.
I think that's one of my favorite things of being an entrepreneur is being an entrepreneur, you're always looking for problems and the solutions to those problems. And it's amazing to be able to give back to the marketplace to help people actually, show them that there's a better solution. So congratulations on developing that, breaking through any sort of difficulties to kind of accomplish that. And I think, personally, I love software. I love SaaS. It's absolutely fantastic. I think we're in such a fortunate time that we're able to create these, technologies and help so many people all over the world. So it's absolutely fantastic what you guys are doing. There was one, I wanted to ask you, there was one story that you talk about in one of your videos, which is related to when you were doing some work at the hospital and with a newborn baby that wasn't unfortunately doing too well and needed some surgery. And it was a very touching story. And you were showing how when the staff was trying to, take care of the child, they encountered problems with the computer software and they were having these difficulties when they were trying to do their job. And one lesson that I think we can all learn from that is the importance of being able to adapt and pivot in life. Talk more about that story. That's a very fascinating story and sort of the importance of being able to, when you hit that roadblock, having that open mind to say, how can I continue to move on and do what I need to do to solve whatever it is.
Maher, I mentioned earlier that what we've institutionalized not doing the right thing, and that story, which if you want the drama from up on the big stage, you can go to Constituent Hub and watch the video. It's about 6 minutes, but what that story represented was that institutionalization of not doing the right thing. So what this hospital had done was make homogenous all the different departments as they were implementing this change, treated them all the same. And in this example that we pulled out, the neonatal intensive care unit just was different in how they processed or had to process because of the type of patient situations they have. And so the homogenous solution wouldn't work for them. And when you're in accounting or in insurance, if that happens, it's not that big a deal. We adjust. In this case, literally people could die. It was life and death because we chose to, as an organization, say, you know what, we don't have time or money. Let's not worry about that. Well, it'll come out in the wash on the other end. And so because of that, that's my purpose and motivation for creating something like Constituent Hub and all the hassles that are involved in that, because I don't want that to ever happen again. In the moment, the pivoting of that story was, let's throw all that away and save this baby's life. That's what's most important in this moment. And while all of these caregivers who are just wonderful human beings were trying so hard to save this baby's life, they also were trying just as hard to properly use the computer system they were ordered to use. And I had to step in and say, stop. Forget the computer, save the baby, right? Let's focus on the right thing. So those types of pivots are necessary. And then you step back just a half step and say, how do we fix this around this scenario for going forward for the rest of the day today and tomorrow and the next day? And then how do we institutionally get better at not letting this happen in the first place? All of that complexity comes into play for us as entrepreneurs. We do that constantly, or we have to do that constantly. So when we look at the difference between somebody who has the entrepreneurial spirit or could grow it, and somebody who simply punches a time clock, that really is the crux of it, isn't it? It's that ability to pivot in the moment, be available to with all of the information, the data that's flying past us at any given moment, and to be able to crystallize that into action that actually gets something done. May not be life or death, but it's just as significant many times in what we all do. So that's where that story comes from. It's so significant for me because it gives me the purpose for my entire career and getting up every day. But also, as you said, as you pointed out, kind of gives you a picture of the entrepreneurial mindset at the same time. So very important. Thank you.
I think it's. I think one thing about being an entrepreneur is you. That one word that always resonates with me is that you have to be resourceful. And even if you don't know something, if you don't have enough money, if you don't have enough skills, you can always be resourceful enough to kind of think outside the box and kind of be like water, just kind of go around the obstacle and stuff like that. And it's
you'll appreciate the origination of Constituent Hub. When I put my foot down and said we're going to build this, I was with a client. A client was asking me to lead a change effort for them. It happened to be in Brazil. And I said, well, I'll do it. However, we're going to build a computer system together at the same time. So you're going to have to deal with all the headaches that might cause you. But I have this dream. We're going to build this. We're going to do this together, and you're going to partner with me. So that's really the origination. Here's what's interesting in the entrepreneurial, the behind the scenes kind of stuff. The economy in Brazil at the time tanked. They canceled that project. I said, okay, too bad. We're still building the computer system. Now you have to buy it before it even exists. And you're going to fund. That's how Constituent Hub was born. I don't tell that story a lot, but just because we're focusing on entrepreneurs, that's how it works. That's how stuff happens in the entrepreneurial world. Nothing's ever straight line. We have to adapt and move and twist and turn. If that purpose is solid enough, then you will. That's the key.
I think one thing I wanted to ask you was, I know you mentioned, how you kind of came to realizing, you were working with top executives, you realized that you have to start your own company. I wanted to ask you about the importance of taking action in the fear, a little bit related to what we were just talking about, to do things even though you might be afraid of doing them, the importance of still taking action. I think, even if you're unsure how to do something, I believe a lot of people really hold themselves back because they have these self-limiting beliefs that they tell themselves that, oh, you know what, I don't know this, I'm not ready for this. I can't do something because I'm lacking something internally or externally, whatever the case may be. And I think not just for entrepreneurs, but anybody in life, to achieve anything. You want to ask somebody out on a date, you want to get healthier, you want to improve your business, you want to, play the piano. You need to still take that action. And what was it like for you? And talk about more the importance of taking action in the face of the unknown and or in the face of fear. Any stories related to your life or that?
Well, there's a balance of practical and dreamer, if you will. So I always suggest to somebody thinking about making the leap that it's you might appreciate this. It's extremely important to marry well. And what I mean by that is if your wife has a job with health insurance, that's a great thing, right? So there are some practical aspects to it. Like nail those things down if you can. Take as much of that void of concern away as you possibly can. That puts your like planning hat on and make that happen. But at the same time, I think there's a confidence level that's required. I like to think that there's any situation that you could drop me into that I could ask enough questions to be able to figure it out and be proficient at it. It might not be the best thing for me. I might not be great at it, but I could ask enough questions. I could be curious enough, focus enough, and work hard enough to be able to hold my own. And if I have that feeling, then going into the interview for a new client project, asking somebody on a date, those things start to lose their viciousness, that their scariness, because I have this confidence that, well, what if she says this? Well, I think I could ask a question that might allow the conversation to keep going. I don't have to know all the answers beforehand, but if I have that confidence that I know that I could adapt, then throw it at me, let me walk through the door. I think what happens to many people is they feel like they need to have the answers ahead of time before they'll walk through the door, because they lack that confidence to be able to figure it out, to be able to take the environment, learn from it quickly, and turn that into some sort of an action item right away. We need to go think about it a little bit, or go get another certification, or go back to school and get another degree before we're ready. That's just a lack of confidence often. As I said, I worked a full-time job while I was going to school full-time. I didn't wait till I had the degree first, right? And by the way, while I was doing that craziness, I was learning at probably quadruple the speed, because the things I was learning in school, I had already done at work, and vice versa, right? So it pays dividends if you're willing to create that confidence for yourself. And the way to do that is simply to practice. So put yourself in a situation where you're not exactly sure. You won't lose a limb or anything by doing it. Practice slow at first, but once you start gaining, well, you know what? I figured it out. I got through it. Nobody laughed at me. It was okay. I didn't die, right? All of those things start to build confidence in you, so that then you could really handle just about anything. And that's the level of confidence that an entrepreneurial person needs. The non-entrepreneur looks at that human being and thinks they're nuts, right? And that's okay. There's not a problem with that.
Confidence is absolutely, vital to anything that you do in life. Without that level of confidence, you're just going to be sitting back watching life go by and not taking that.
Very different from cockiness or
Yes.
arrogance. Those are two completely different things from confidence. And again, often many people mix those all together.
Absolutely.
So you see some cocky, slick salesperson and you think, oh, that's what he's talking about with confidence. I have to be that. I don't like that guy, so I'm not going to do this. So be careful parsing the language, obviously.
Exactly.
The words are important.
And self-esteem as well, to know that you have self-worth to achieve that level of success that you want in life, no matter what that success looks like to you.
Self-esteem and confidence go closer together than arrogance and cockiness, right?
Right.
Two opposite extremes.
Since we're talking about personal development right now, you have a book called Personal Brilliance. I want you to talk more about the book and the importance for continual self-improvement as we're talking right now. It's very important to always better yourself, to always better your knowledge, to put yourself in those uncomfortable situations so you know who you really are inside. Like you just said, it's about putting yourselves in a situation to then be able to figure it out. And one thing I want to add to the confidence thing that I've noticed with myself and I've noticed with others as well, once if you're doing something for the first time and you're obviously absolutely not sure how anything works, but you build up that just a little bit of confidence to go out there and make it happen. And then the beauty about that is once you start to take that, like you said, that first step, that leads to many more steps, because then you step back and you look, you're like, wait a minute, if I was able to do that and it wasn't hard or painful, nothing bad happened, just imagine what else I can do. And it happened with me, and it snowballed with me that I did one thing that, pushed me out of my comfort zone, which was, for example, starting public speaking last year, and, just starting Toastmasters to kind of, practice and have a platform that I can practice on. And then from there, I was, able to say, wow, if I can do this, I started doing this and this and this. And I think it's really important for people to understand that once they break through that initial wall, that it can really catapult you forward, and it can give you that motivation and that confidence to really show yourself that you're capable of doing so much. So, if you can just talk about more about the book and sort of the importance of the personal development to continue that in life.
Yeah. So, working in the area of large organizational change, it's really a cousin to innovation. And I thought, okay, we need another innovation book like A Hole in the Head. We don't need another one of those. But what do I bring to the table to my clients, and why is it extraordinary? Let's use that word, meaning that not everybody there could do this. What's the deal here? And so I really started to study that. I paid close attention, and I really honed in on 4 catalysts of an innovative person. And so that's why the title of the book is called Personal Brilliance, because I believe that an organization can be more innovative only if all of the individuals in the company are brilliant and all of those people come together as one, as a team. Then the company could be labeled innovative, right? It's not something that happens in a laboratory. It's not something that happens in a special building. It's everybody in the organization being innovative. So therefore, personal brilliance. So I hit on 4 catalysts that I believe are natural abilities that we're born with, but stand in line, raise your hand before you talk, don't chew gum kind of rules that we grow up with, put a bit of tarnish on these natural abilities. The 4 catalysts are awareness, curiosity, focus, and initiative. And our definitions are maybe a little slightly different than the norm for each of those catalysts. But when you polish the tarnish off of those natural abilities, you flourish. I talked about being confident. Well, curiosity, if you have the ability to ask questions, you can survive. Awareness, you see a problem that exists in the marketplace that nobody else sees. That's your awareness kicking in. Focus, having a 360-degree focus rather than a laser beam focus, so that all that data coming at you, you could manipulate it into a cogent answer to a problem. And then, of course, taking action. We have personas for each of them. Awareness is the prospector, curiosity is the detective, focus is the chief executive, and initiative is the action hero. So with those personas living inside all of us, different levels of capability and skill in each area, but you start then putting that individual that's brilliant next to somebody else who's brilliant. They start feeding off each other's talents and skills and experience. Now we start to be building innovation. So while I typically talk about organizations and management and leadership, it really starts with the individual human being. And that's why the shape of the book took the way it did. So in effect, it's a self-improvement book only from the standpoint of saying, hey, it's in here already. Let's do some things that can help us utilize it and take advantage of it.
I think everybody is capable of achieving great things, and it's all within you. And if we're just, have the right mindset, like you said, the right confidence to be able to dig into ourselves deep inside, we'll be able to see that we're capable of achieving whatever it is, that success that we want in life. And that leads me to sort of the next question, which is discipline. You're doing a lot right now. You have a lot on your plate. You work with, you're doing your software business. You're doing your, speaking and consulting business as well. How important is discipline to you in terms of being able to get things done and progress your life and your business. When we all experience that, I don't feel like it. When we're trying to do something and sometimes we're tired or we're just not in the mood. But discipline is that that extra thing that helps you carry forth. How has discipline really helped you in your career?
Yeah, discipline's important. I think having a good work ethic is pretty up there on the list of requirements. There's the working smart versus working hard, which is nice, and you should always work smart, but you also should have the ability to work hard. And so when I was leading those change efforts and there was no Constituent Hub computer system, I had to do over the top kinds of levels of work in order to get done the correct things, right? So that means staying up all night and doing grunt work. You have to be able to do that. Not that you should all the time, but you have to be able to do that. So bottom line, like baseline, you have to have a work ethic. You can't be lazy. But then you're talking, now the tricks come in, okay? And so the key trick for me is that every activity might look to you, an outsider to my scenario, as scattered, volume, lots, different, hands in many pies, that kind of thing. But there's a congruency with every activity. And I hesitate to use the word leverage because it's sometimes used as a bad word, but you're leveraging an activity. So if I'm doing something right now, it has an impact on multiple areas of my portfolio if I think of my business as a portfolio. So if I had, for example, the Personal Brilliance book on the sheet, right? And I had Constituent Hub on the sheet, and professional speaking on the sheet, and executive advisory on the sheet, do you think it's valuable to me to do this podcast with you? We did something about each of those in our time together. So this is a highly leveraged and congruent activity for me. Is it a waste of time? The millions of dollars you're paying me to be on your podcast is great, but it's even more valuable because I'm hitting all of those different areas of my portfolio. So there's a congruency to what I'm doing. There's a purpose. Hardly anything is one-off. And so again, if you're a student looking from the outside, do I want to jump off the ledge into being an entrepreneur? That's a key component. So by definition, I like the eclecticness of it and being involved in different things, but it's okay if I'm the only one that sees it, but I know that everything is linked and connected. And to me, that's the secret to accomplishing a great deal of things with the allotted time that we have. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think leverage is a must. You need it. You're only, we have a limited amount of time in the day. We have a limited amount of energy. We need the resources of other people. We need the resources of technology like software. We need to be able to, like you said, leverage ourselves to almost clone ourselves, as to be able to do a greater job, impact more people, service more people. So I think that's absolutely fantastic advice. So thank you for that.
We compartmentalize too much, I think, right?
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine is a professional speaker. He's an expert on college football, and he's a tax accountant. And those seem like really different things. But when he talks stats about football to his accounting people, boom, they love it. And vice versa. And he had compartmentalized for so many years. And when he discovered that congruency between the two activities that were disparate and separate, his business just exploded as a result. So yeah, it's a very important concept.
That is a cool story, Jim. Thank you so much for sharing so much knowledge and wealth of experience today. To wrap up, how can people reach out to you, learn more about you personally, what you're doing, and get more help from you if they want to reach out?
Sure. Probably the main place to visit would be our website. That's really my name, jimcanterucci.com, and I'm sure in the show notes you'll have the spelling of all of that, right? So jimcanterucci.com, and that's a leverage point. Constituent Hub also has its own website. So if you're interested in either change leadership and change leadership software, or just the nuts and bolts of what you and I have been talking about, it might be worth a visit to constituenthub.com as well. Both of those have contact information to me, and I'm happy to take any questions and help out however I can with your audience, especially. We're partners now.
Jim Canterucci, thank you so much for coming on the Nolimitspreneur podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time out today of your busy schedule to share your knowledge with everybody, and I really appreciate connecting with you and having you on.
I love what you're doing. Thanks so much for having me.
So thank you so much once again to my valued guest, Jim Canterucci. Jim shared a wealth of knowledge that I am sure will help you a lot to better and improve your life and business. And if you got value out of today's podcast episode, please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss out on future episodes just like this one, where I will be bringing on even more incredible guests to share their stories as well. Once again, my name is Maher Abiad, and you've been locked on to another episode of the Nolimitspreneur podcast. I'll catch you in the next episode.
You've been listening to another quality episode of the Nolimitspreneur podcast with your host, Maher Abiad. Want to continue to master your mindset? Download the 7 self-limiting beliefs that are stealing your success away guide for free right now at nolimitspreneur.com.